Welcome to the Chaos Plan, where the odds may not always be in your favor. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Chaos Plan. If you'd like to know more about the show and have an idea of kind of what's going on and where we're at in the world, visit our website where we are currently working on an online campaign guide, which you can find at www.theadventuringguild.com. And if you would like to join the show or become a sponsor and help us make this podcast better, visit our Patreon account. Just search for The Adventuring Guild or our website to find a link. And by subscribing and helping us out, you can not only join our Discord to hear our episodes live, you can also become a member of the show, get some awesome merch, and represent the guild. So thank you very much, and on with the show.
Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of The Chaos Plan, where the odds may not always be in your favor. I will be running a game with Vergil, Thorun here, as he jumped through the portal to go visit the Fire Isles and Tolinarth in specific. So we will go ahead and start there. What would you do upon jumping through the portal? You would have landed basically wherever there would be kind of a center of any kind of magic, I don't know, wherever there would be a large concentration of magic, like a mage's hall or a scrying pool or something along those lines is where you would drop it or near.
Okay. I guess my first order of business then would be to go to the Soul Forged.
Okay.
And talk with them a little bit and let them know that I'm back and the updates that have come to be since I left.
Okay. So you head over to where the leaders of the Soul Forged would be. Would there be a council, or how would the Soul Forged be ruled?
It's pretty much a council. There's the Grand Master, essentially. But then that Grand Master is kind of in charge. And then there's a council of maybe 4 or 5 other, like, masters, essentially, elders of the group that would make up the council.
All right. So would you have told whatever guard individual that you saw first upon arriving to summon the council, or would you just head straight to the council chambers and yell to summon them once you get there?
I just kind of show up and see if they're busy and just tell them that I have business with the council if they're available to meet.
You get there and the council is already in session, not a formal meeting, but the council members are all there, and they seem to be in some sort of heated discussion. There's a lot of yelling, which isn't that uncommon for dwarves, but this seems to be more pointed than the usual bluster that comes with dwarven clan feuds.
Okay.
Would you wait outside the audience chamber, or would you walk in and try and get their attention?
I'd just wait.
Go ahead and roll me a perception check then.
That is a 15.
Alright, with a 15, you hear that they are in a heated discussion regarding people disappearing and whatnot, and you hear one of the councilmen or clan elders or something along those lines saying, "It isn't like the Soul Forged to just disappear. I know that many of us go on our pilgrimages and bring down foes that are causing havoc amongst the outlying clans, but it's not like one of the Runechest to just disappear off the face of Arcadia. I know that they are a treasure hunting lot and are known to dive deeper into some of the other tunnels in search of lost artifacts, but they always send back word or leave notes or messages as to where they are going. I do not know why one of them would just disappear out of nowhere." And then you hear the responses back about potential foes that it could have been. You know, maybe there's illithids or whatnot further down in the tunnels and he was captured, or maybe he ran into a purple worm or a worm nest or something along those lines. You just hear there's yelling back and forth. And it doesn't seem like it's going to come to a halt anytime soon. Do you want to interrupt them since you're here on kind of similar circumstances, or do you want to leave a message with one of the guards to have them talk to you later?
I would pound on the door, but I wouldn't enter. I'd wait for him to say something.
All right, you pound on the door once, and they're still yelling, and so you pound on the door a second time a little bit louder, and they stop their conversation abruptly and come to the doors of the council chamber and open them for you and say, "What is it that we can do for you, Master Bronzebeard?"
I'm here to report in on some strange occurrences that have been happening in Port City and, from what I've heard, other areas around Arcadia.
What is the strange occurrences? We don't have time for anything, for any minor dealings with the rest of the world. We're currently dealing with one of the soul forges that has gone missing here, one of the rune chests.
Strange. It's the exact same thing that I've come to report in on, is strange disappearances.
All right, you see everybody at that point kind of stands up from the map of the tunnels that they had, that they were leaning over. The one that answered the door gestures you in and says, "Then come in quickly. Tell us what you know."
Very well. And so I enter the room.
All right. Yeah, we don't have to roleplay the whole thing. If you want, we can just say that you told them everything that happened. They asked general questions about, how did they disappear? Did anybody see it happen? How often did it happen? Who was taken? Those kind of things. And I'm assuming you would reply in kind that, they just disappeared. Your friend Aura disappeared in a spherical portal.
I'd talk about how we went and investigated all the people, that they were all figures that were very talented or exceptional in their field. And then, as far as witnesses, I witnessed it firsthand in a conflict that arose with a portal that appeared. I witnessed one of the disappearances firsthand.
Yes, the Runechest boy that disappeared. He was known to have not only mastered many of the same techniques that you have, but he could also summon a blade from thin air, almost as if he had, almost like some of the warlocks can do. So he definitely was an exceptional clansman. That would make a lot of sense as to why he would have been the one that would have been chosen to disappear. They tell you to, after you have done what you can to resupply and gather your strength here, return to Port City and do what you can there in order to assist Port City, so that maybe if enough people there are able to identify the cause and figure out what's going on, you can bring it back here and we can find the Runechest boy.
I can do that. I have one other question about god beasts, Kagar. We learned we're not sure if it has something to do with it, but during our investigation, that god beast came up. I didn't know if or anyone in Tolinar might know the creature and what it does.
All right, they kind of look at each other and they say, Kangor was brought down and restrained centuries ago. So your best bet would be to check the archives. Most of our folk were only minimally involved with that affair as it took place in the King Islands. But you may be able to find something within the archives.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So then, would you take your leave then, or would you question them anymore?
If they don't have anything else for me, I would just give a really deep bow and then go about the rest of my business.
Okay. They all return the bow with a lesser degree, equal to the station, and you are able to depart. Where would you like to head from there?
I would like to stop at the clan home of Bronzebeard and visit family real quick.
Okay. So as you're walking through Tolinar, away from where the Soul Forged Hall or whatever it would be is, you notice that many of the people within Tolinar appear to be a little bit more on edge than normal. The children that are playing in the streets are being a little bit more watchful, a little bit more cautious. You notice that many of the other homes of the, the more distantly related families are, they aren't as welcoming, as open, People aren't just hanging out and chatting in the streets. If people are talking, it's within a home with the doors closed kind of a thing. So it is a more tense atmosphere than you're used to. You manage to get back to your clan home, and let's see here. Go ahead and roll me a d20.
4.
A 4. As you approach your clan home, you notice that those within the, I guess, outside guard or whatever, whoever would be kind of the door person for the Bronzebeard family clan home or whatever it would be, definitely looks at you with a little bit of not suspicion, but looks at you almost as if they're cautious of your return.
I wouldn't say anything. I just kind of nod my head in acknowledgement of their presence and just keep going. All
right. As you enter in, you see the front door person kind of takes a step back as you enter into the doors or whatever, kind of putting a little bit of a step, an extra little bit of distance between you and them. You enter into the clan home. Where would you go from there? Straight to the head of the family, or would you go to your rooms, or would you search around? What would you do?
I'd go to the patriarch of the family.
You make your way up to the patriarch of the family, who doesn't treat you any differently. You can tell that he's a bit more weary, I guess. It looks almost as if he's aged, even though dwarves don't show age that much. So you can definitely get the impression that he's tired and a bit worn out. But he greets you as however the patriarch would normally greet you.
It would be my grandfather.
Oh, your grandfather's the patriarch, that's right. All right, then your grandfather would, upon seeing you enter, would stand up with arms open and clasp you in a big hug and say, "Thorun, my boy, it's great to see you back here. How has your time in Port City been?"
It's been different than here. How are you holding up?
I imagine it has been. You never know what those softer races have about them, but I'm glad to see you didn't come back dressed like an elf in leathers. It's been a tough one for us here, too. I'm sure you heard by now about the Runechest boy that disappeared.
Yes, I just heard about it. I've also noticed everyone on edge, or everyone in the city is on edge. Is that due to this disappearance?
We're not exactly sure. There's rumors going around that there could be some foul play and an attempted coup to drop the 7 families down to 6, much like happened to... Do you guys speak about the clan that was exiled, or is it one of those where they're like erased from history?
It's there, but no one really... it's one of those, they know about it, but it's kind of a hush-hush kind of thing. I mean, everyone knows it happened, but yeah.
And how many years ago would that have happened, roughly?
It would have been about 66, about 60 some years ago.
Okay. So then he would say, they're talking about, there's rumors that there might be a coup attempted to bring the 7 families down to 6. Kind of like what happened with that funny business 60 so years ago.
Interesting. Is there any mention about which family they're trying to take down?
Right now, with the Runechest boy disappeared, they're thinking it might be that family that's the next target, which doesn't make sense. They've got quite a haul of treasure, of course, being as they are primarily a treasure hunting type family. But I don't see why anybody would have tried to go after them unless it's for their wealth. They don't really have any enemies or make any real alliance.
That's strange.
It really is. So what brings you back, my boy?
Came back for a couple things. Some soul-forged business. These disappearances, like the Runechest boy, they have not been just here. They've been happening all over Arcadia. In fact, I witnessed one myself. One of our allies was taken. I don't know if she was chosen to be taken, but she fought with honor and respect. She gave up everything to save us. So, in fact, I owe everything because I'm here right now.
Then come sit over a mug and tell me this story. I'm sure you've already told your masters back at the Soulforged. So fill in your family as to what has happened.
I'd basically repeat the exact same thing. What I told the masters, except for over a pint of beer or something like that.
All right, yeah, you able to sit? And I believe at this point it would be getting close to supper time. I think because you left middle of the day.
Yeah, everyone was going to go to Hammaches, and I decided to just take a quick trip to Tolinar.
All right, so then over lunch or whatever, bread and different kinds of meats and whatnot are brought out, and you guys are able to eat in your grandfather's study or whatever kind of private room would be off of the main receiving type area. So you're able to sit there and tell him the story, and he is deeply concerned by it, but really doesn't know what to do. He just shakes his head and basically just says he doesn't know what's going on with all of this magic business, but something big is happening. I can feel it in my bones. And that's about all that he really has to say about it.
Okay. I'd ask him if he knows of anyone by the name of Belnir.
He kind of scratches his beard and tugs on it a little bit, and he's like, Belnir. I know the name, but I can't say that I know what happened to him. He's an odd one, takes no clan name, but I do remember seeing him when you were first inducted into the Soul Forge, but it has been a decade or so since that happened, and I have had very little dealings with him since.
I see. I ran into him at Port City the other day, about a week or so ago, and he mentioned rumors about things going around here, such as being an actual Bronzebeard, and I was going to ask if you knew anything. Am I actually a Bronzebeard, or are these just more political games to, such as with this Runechest boy, the political struggles that always happen?
Alright, you see his dark red beard. His face gets darker than his dark red beard, and he's like, "You're a Bronzebeard if I ever saw one. As a matter of fact, I was right there when you were born. I was the first one to hold you after your mama. You're a Bronzebeard if I ever knew one, by my own flesh and blood."
I just nod my head and say, that's what I believed, but again, I just wanted to know straight from the source.
All right, and go ahead and roll me an insight check when he shouted in anger.
That is a 12.
A 12. You know your grandfather has the typical dwarven temper, and he gets riled and kind of works up like a steam engine. But this was just a boom, instant, bam, anger, shouting. Now, this was very uncharacteristic anger from your grandfather.
Interesting. Okay. I wouldn't say anything if he got that angry that quick. I'd just kind of leave it, let it mull around in my head for a little bit.
All right. Would you take your leave then, or would you sit here and just chat with your grandfather for a while?
I'd probably sit and chat with my grandfather a little bit, talk about some blacksmithing stuff that I've been working on, and things like that.
Okay. After chatting with him for a while, he's talking about some of the smithing as well. You can see he's kind of clenching his smithing hand, or his hammering hand, a bit. You can tell that the arthritis, the stiff joints are kind of besetting him now. It's probably getting harder for him to forge, but you guys talk amiably about it, and towards the end of the conversation, when it's getting to be dusk and your grandfather goes to bed early and rises very early, the last thing he says before kind of dismissing you, unless you have anything else important to add or ask.
Nope, not really.
All right. He says, "Just watch yourself, my boy. There's a lot of strange folk around here, a lot of strange rumors going around, and nobody really feels safe around those that have left Tolinar. They worry that something might be happening outside the city that will close us off from the rest of the world, and fear that anybody who enters the city may be a spy. So just watch your back and make sure that you're keeping your nose up and out of other people's business."
I try my best.
All right, then he would dismiss you and head to his rooms for the evening. It would be late, but not super, super late, 9, 10 o'clock-ish at this point in the evening. Would you do anything else before calling it a night?
I might go work in the family forge for just a little bit, and then I'd probably call it a night and start the research at the archive first thing in the morning.
Okay. Would the family forge be kind of open air type forge, or would it be kind of behind walls, behind like a big retaining wall around the entire estate?
It would be, what was the first part of that again?
Like a completely open area, like just, no walls really separating your view from the rest of Tollenarth, or would it be kind of, behind like a privacy fence in your backyard?
It would be a little bit of both. It's within the area of the home, but it still has views of, like, it sits high, a little bit high up, so that you can look over and see things.
Okay, then go ahead and roll me a perception check.
Okay. Oh, that's a nat 1.
A nat 1. All right, you really get into hammering and smithing and whatnot, and working away, and you don't really notice anything else on the outside of the forge. Being back in that familiar, back in your familiar where you learned to blacksmith and whatnot, kind of just tunnel visions you, and so you're able to hammer away until it gets to be morning, until you call it a night for the night.
Alrighty.
All right, so then you call it a night. You wake up in the morning. What would be the first thing you do upon waking?
I'd probably grab some breakfasts and then make my way to the archives to look up anything about the god beast and the King Islands and things of that nature.
All right, you head your way over to the archive and you begin sorting through the shelves, and you are able to find, with a fair amount of searching and whatnot, 4 books, 4 works on Kangor, between scrolls, books, tablets, that kind of stuff. You're able to find stories about him, what the actual battle was, and we're going to go ahead and just go with those 2. Basically, you find either stories about him or the actual accounts of the battle that took place. Which of those would you want to pour over first?
Actual accounts.
All right. You begin reading the actual accounts about Kangor, and you learn that he was a powerful enough beast of destruction and legend that he actually decimated pretty much all life on the southernmost part of the continent that is the Kang Islands. While he is massive in size, he does not travel very fast, so over the course of 50 or so years, he managed to basically just work from about the middle of the continent, where they first kind of find that he was, down towards the tip of the continent. And during that time, he was attacked multiple times in an attempt to stop that path of destruction. But each time, more and more forces were thrown at him, more and more powerful foes. They were all rebuffed and killed off before they were able to do any kind of lasting damage to him. They recount that every time mages would shoot him with spells, his carapace would either reflect it back at them, or if it did manage to sink in and hit him, the magic would alter the color of that carapace, and spells that were fired at him that were of the same type had absolutely no effect. You also would find out that even the most legendary of weapons couldn't find a good purchase on his hide when he was struck, and all attempts to try to put him to sleep or paralyze him or mind control him or anything were completely in vain. You would find out that he was eventually brought down in the town that is now known as Victory Point, and Victory Point is kind of corpse, I guess, was laid to rest, and because of the remarkable regenerative abilities of Kangor, they continually have to carve off bits and pieces of him in order to keep him dead, for lack of a better term, but he is constantly regenerating. And that's basically what you learn from those books.
Alrighty. I would take them with me. Basically check these books out, because I think that Kleinstern or Chern... I haven't met Cherno, have I?
No, not yet.
Okay. I would believe that...
Oh, yes, you did. You made the chains for his book, but that's the only interaction you've had for him.
That's right. So I would check those books out, because I think Kleinstern might be able to find more information than I would. with them able to piece things together better than I would. And I wouldn't read the stories just yet, but I would take those books as well.
Okay. Yeah, you're able to throw those into a pack, check them out. They ask you if you're going to leave Talonarth with them. You obviously say yes. They ask for 5 silver pieces in deposit, and I'm sure you just give that to them.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and then you are able to check those out. As you go to exit the archive, roll me another perception check.
That is a 10.
A 10. Okay, that's actually good enough. I just needed a 10. So as you go to exit the archive, you notice that further on down in the stacks, you see a very familiar singed gray bearded old dwarf that you saw in Port City.
I would approach him.
All right, you approach him. He seems to be poring over a tome, and it seems to be, oddly enough, about the Runechest family, the lineage, family histories, and that kind of stuff about the Runechest family.
Pat him on the back and just say, looks like I'm not the only one who does research around here.
He jumps with a start, and he's like, oh, God, if I was 50 years younger, you never would have gotten within 20 feet of me. How's it going? And he stands up and clasps your hand.
Things are going all right. How about yourself?
I'm finding more and more troubled things every day that I'm here. And he kind of, he looks down at the Runechest book and shuts it and says, what are you doing back in these parts?
What sort of troubling things are you finding?
I'm getting worried as to what's happening between the family. I'm hoping there's not another coup planned.
I've heard rumors of that very same thing.
It is quite troubling. Go ahead and roll me an insight check.
That is a 15.
A 15. You can tell that he looks a little bit ashamed, guilty, like he's hiding something. Something isn't quite right. He's being deceitful in some way, but you aren't 100% sure about what.
I can sense you're troubled. Please, tell me what's going on. As another member of the Soulforged, tell me what's on your mind.
He kind of looks up and around the stacks a little bit wearily, and he says, if we're going to talk about Soulforged business, then let us return to the compound and speak there. I dare not say anything here where other ears might hear.
I understand that. And then we just make our way over to the Soulforged.
All right. He basically describes to you that he doesn't take a clan name because he has a less than desirable heritage, and he doesn't really specify more than that. He just leaves it as less than desirable for heritage. And he says that there's lots of rumors about the Runechest having large hoards of treasure and all these hidden artifacts, and possibly even some of the founding Soulforged member type runic items and artifacts. Same thing with the founders of Tolinar, some of those legendary artifacts. And but those rumors have been going around forever, so he's unsure as to why that may have caused them to, try and disappear or try to coup the Runechest family right now, and that he's really worried about what could end up happening. He personally knows some of the family members and whatnot of the clan that was taken out, and he doesn't wish that upon anybody. Go ahead and roll me an insight check with his story.
That's a 22.
He is 100% hiding something, especially every time he mentions that family that was, stricken from the books, for lack of a better term. He gets very uncomfortable when that topic is brought.
I would push him on it just because I don't know Belnir that well, and if I work a little bit harder or spend some time, I think I could get it out what's going on, but I don't want to just have him shut down on me completely.
Yeah.
I would mention I talked with my grandfather, the patriarch of the Bronzebeards, about similar things last night.
All right. Would you tell him the story about Aura and all that kind of stuff, or would you still hold that?
Yeah, I would tell him about that. He's one of the Soulforged. I trust him.
Okay. Well, yeah, he would probably hear about it anyway, later on from the Soulforged compound or whatever. So, yeah, you tell him about that, and he looks very, very distressed at this point, and he looks like he's debating something in his head, because you can see that he kind of looks down towards his own blade and seems to be contemplating something for a while. Would you let him think it out, or are you gonna, pick his brain, or what would you do?
I'd let him think it out. He's obviously working through something.
Okay. He tells you to come meet him at the forge here within the Soul Forged compound later on this evening after everybody else has gone lights out, and he may have something that could help you.
All right, I can do that. So I'll just kind of hang around the forge all day and finish doing some that research on the gun blade thing. I think this would be my last day on it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give it to you, because you technically, when you were beating the crap out of that metal after Laura disappeared or whatever, I didn't give you any points for blacksmith practice. Even though you were beating the crap out of something, I'm sure you would have been working a little bit on something more productive. So so then with the rest of today up to this evening, this would be the last day you needed to get the gun blade.
Okay. I will mark that down on my thingy.
Alright, so you're now able to craft that. I don't remember the price on it. We'll look all that.
Yeah, I have it probably written down in one of my notes.
Yeah, somewhere. I know. I've got several pieces of yellow legal pad that have I've torn pages out of and compiled into stacks.
Same.
Yeah. So then you're able to get all that done. Would you stay there then until evening time, or would you take a break?
I would stay there till evening time.
All right. You're able to continue to work on that. You get the gun blade done. One of the other members of the Soul Forge, still in training, brings you some food and whatnot at some point that you're able to kind of munch on, finger food. And then Belnir appears later that evening. Everybody has gone to bed, obviously. It's pretty much lights out across the complex, but the ringing of forges is never something that really keeps Dwarf awake, being as it's so common, so, that's not going to bother anybody. He approaches you as you are finishing up the gunblade design, and he looks very intrigued by it, but you can tell that he's got something else on his mind.
I would just wait for him to approach and acknowledge his presence.
All right, you acknowledge his presence. He doesn't want to interrupt you working, so you acknowledge his presence. He kind of nods to you, and he says, "This is not something that I do lightly. I remain clanless right now of my own volition, but there is an heirloom from my old clan that I am too old to take advantage of, and I have no children of my own anymore to pass this down to. If this would help your friend and help you to figure out what to do and how to save them, then I gladly pass it on to you." And he holds out it looks like kind of that core of the handle, the tang, that bit of the blade, and it looks to have been broken off at some point, as if a great amount of pressure had been applied to the flat side of the blade, and it eventually snapped, right kind of where the crossguard would have met the actual blade itself.
Okay.
He holds it out to you, waiting for you to take.
I would very graciously, kind of, not ceremoniously, but, take it with respect and whatnot.
All right. He says, "This is an item that, as I said, belonged to my clan back when I was a member. I have another part of the fragment of this blade within my own sword. I will show you how it is used and what you can do with it. I hope that it will serve you well in the future." And he kind of takes you out a little ways, make sure that it's in the training grounds, but not where anybody's really going to be able to see what's going on. And he demonstrates the ability to use the cantrip Sword Burst from it. So you're able to, when you use the weapon as an action, as opposed to, you doing the multiple strikes kind of a thing. So when you use it as your action, you are able to cast the Sword Burst cantrip with that swing.
Cool.
All right, and he says, "It must be forged into a weapon to be of any use. but I can see that it is in the capable hands of the very accomplished smith.
Thank you very much. I don't know what to say.
Just remember my name, and maybe at some point you'll find out more about my clan. I bid you a good day, Master Bronzebeard.
I bid you a good day as well, Belnir.
And he disappears out of the complex. So then, what would you like to do? It would be pretty deep evening on the night of the 28th now. So it would be probably, 11 o'clock, close to midnight on the 28th.
If it's that late, how long would it take me to... It would probably take me a while to put that tang back into my sword.
Yeah, I would say because you are already actively working at the smith right now, the forge is already lit, that kind of stuff. If you were to power through all night and all day tomorrow, you would take 1 level of exhaustion on the morning of the 29th, but you would be, or on the morning of the, let's see, because it's midnight on the 28th, so technically it's the 29th. So the morning of the 30th, you would have 1 level of exhaustion, but you could incorporate it into your blade if you powered through 1 full day. Otherwise, you could do it in a couple of smaller chunks to incorporate.
I would do it while I'm here at Tollenart, just because I'm comfortable with the forge, and it means, it's sentimental while I'm here and doing it. So I'll just power through it and take that exhaustion.
All right, so you are powering through, and you are, hitting the blade, and the sparks that ring out have almost a musical quality to them as you're folding that tang that you kind of melted down, and formed a smaller bar. As you kind of incorporated it into the actual metal of your own blade, you can hear that resonant musical note as you're hammering away, and even many of the smiths within the Soul Forge are kind of holding back apprentices and whatnot from entering. They're afraid that they might break your concentration, because even they can recognize that this is one of those monumental, major occurrences that a smith is making a masterpiece work, and you are able to work that in. And it definitely is a masterpiece. You can see that once you get done, all the other smiths are kind of right there with, they've been putting water underneath their arm and a loaf of bread, that kind of stuff that you can easily eat while not interrupting what you're doing. And the second you get done and the blade is cooled and everything else, you just kind of slump into a seat, and they are able to help you to a table, get a little bit of something more substantial in your stomach, and then carry you straight to your room. As you notice I guess it's underground, so the dawn sun would not be shining in your eyes, but you notice the time-telling deal that you see, a great pillar in the middle of Tollenart that lights up brighter as the day, is mimicked up above. This pillar is glowing with the first lights of what would be dawn.
Okay. Well, if the sword is finished, then I would pack up my stuff and take a portal back to Port City.
All right, so then we will go ahead and break here if you want, or is there anything last minute you would like to do in Port City other than get back to the Fighters Guild?
I think that's about it.
All right, you take the portal back, head back to the Fighters Guild, set your stuff down, inspect your new blade as the noon bells ring behind. All right, thank you very, very much, Vergil. We will go ahead and break here. If there's any kind of shopping and stuff you want to do, go ahead and do that on your own time. If you want, you can deduct that money. I put that up in Discord, and we will see your character, hopefully, in the charity game.
Alrighty, sounds good.
Oh, one last thing I forgot to say. So everybody knows, the charity game will be taking place at level 4, so go ahead and level up your character, Vergil.
Ooh, fancy.
Alright, I'll talk to you later.
Alright, sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Chaos Plan. If you would like to join the game and support the podcast, visit our Patreon account at patreon.com/adventuringguild. And there you can pledge to either become a sponsor or a player, or both if you like. So thank you all very, very much for listening, and we hope you join us again next week.